Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. So it's been a while since we've done one of these, but I've had these gloves for ages and I figured it's probably about time I did a review on them because although you can probably tell from the thumbnail, they are in fact another pair of Hound racing gloves. Although these aren't too dissimilar, there's very few changes, and in fact if you haven't already seen my other Hound racing gloves review, I'd recommend watching that because basically a lot of what I say in that video will apply to these, because in terms of the grip performance and all the other things, that they really do basically apply to this glove as well. And it's only really the sort of the areas that are different that I'll touch on in a minute that sort of I'll elaborate on in this video, but everything else you can kind of cover through that. If you can't be able to watch that other video because you're already here and you don't want to click onto another one, that's fine, I'll recap everything anyway. So in the previous video we reviewed these, and these are the Hound racing glove in red, and yeah, basically to recap what I thought of them, they were near enough perfect for me, both in terms of grip, thermal, so when you're racing with them for a long period of time, they were nice and cool, your hands don't sweat. Even in the summer with the heat wave we've just had, I don't think any glove is going to be able to stop your hands sweating in that, but a good glove will stop your hands being dripping wet and uncomfortable, and sort of, you know, when you've got material rubbing against damp hands for a long period of time, you can start to sort of get blisters and get, you know, irritate the skin. So a good thermal performance on a glove is important, and these are just exactly that. They match up perfectly to that. Grip, you know, not too elaborate the grip, it's just some rubber on this part of the glove, and that works absolutely fine. I don't think you have as long as a wheel. I think the wheel is just as much important in terms of grip, you know, slipping and stuff like that, as the gloves. But again, these are sort of exactly what you need in terms of grip and just general comfort and performance. You know, there's velcro design on here, so you can strap them tight as tight as you need, and yeah, there's just not too much to say in terms of, you know, they're a racing glove for sim racing, and for that purpose they're absolutely perfect. And these are 6 months old now, or probably a bit older than that, and you can probably tell, other than maybe a slight bit of fading up here, they're near enough. I mean, the condition's near enough perfect. There's no sort of stitching coming loose, there's no holes. As my Sparko gloves previously had a few issues with holes appearing, especially once I washed them. So these really held up well, especially given they get a lot of use. So that said, this video is reviewing these, and you can probably tell, other than the colour, and unfortunately at the time of recording there's only black in the new glove, so I'm sure that will change given the amount of colours available in the older version of the glove. I say older version, these are still available, so you can buy these or these, and I'll get onto the difference in a minute. But given the gloves on the colours on these, I'm sure Adam will bring these ones up to match soon. But the only difference to these, and again you can probably tell, the grip's the same, the design's the same other than the colour. It looks almost identical, the sort of Velcro bit as well. But if you've got a keen eye for detail, then you can probably see on the outside of the glove and the fingers, I'm not sure how well that's focusing, but we have external stitching now. Now why is that important? So basically, in the real world, the majority of gloves you see for racing, karting, the more expensive karting gloves, they're all external stitching. Now the reason for that is basically from a comfort point of view. Obviously when the stitching's inside the glove, it's directly touching your skin, and over long periods of time, depending on, you know, if you've got sensitive skin or the comfort of the glove in general, or if you're sweating, that can start to rub up against the skin and it can irritate you. And when you're really focused on inside the car and just on the track, you do not want to have to worry about discomfort anywhere, be it hands, helmet, you know, your shoes. You just want total comfort so you can focus solely on the track. So does it make a difference? So as I say, with these, the comfort was absolutely spot on. I never really noticed any discomfort. I mean, you have to really sort of pay attention to notice the stitching. So straight off the bat, I will say that if you already have these gloves and you're thinking about whether it's worth the move up to these, I'd say if you're like me and you don't find these uncomfortable, you probably won't gain a whole lot from that. But once you actually use these, and you go from internal stitching to external stitching, it does make a slight difference. Now that might contradict what I just said, because if I hadn't ever used the external stitching one, I wouldn't have sort of complained, because these aren't uncomfortable. But when you go to external stitching gloves, you do notice that slight little difference, especially after long time. As I say, with the heat wave we've just had, your hands get a little bit sweaty, and that's when sort of, you know, you start to sort of feel things a bit more, when your skin gets a bit more sensitive, and that's when you sort of will notice that difference. Also, when you're gripping ever so slightly, because that stitching isn't then pressed up against your skin more, again, you notice that. And these are things that, unless you experience them, so going from one to the other, you might not really appreciate and you might not necessarily need, because these are perfectly adequate. But it depends. If you, as sim racers, you might argue we don't really need that extra 1% that you get from the comfort and performance of an external stitching glove. But if you do want that 1%, or even if you just, you know, you fancy that bit more immersion, you want the more closer to real racing stuff, then these are great. And the one thing I will say about them, being the external stitching, is they do have a bit more raw feel. So they do look a bit more fit for purpose in terms of like an actual racing glove, where these look just like a nice, I don't know, I don't want to say gaming accessory, because it's a bit of a taboo word when you talk about sim racing, using the word gaming. But these look a bit more like they could be used in a real car, whereas these sort of do look like something you'd use as a sim racer. So again, that's everything we do really in sim racing, from the most part, is an immersion thing. So extra immersion, if you want that little bit, granted it's not going to change too much, that's one area. One downside of the external stitching, and it was, again, going back to the other review, one minor thing I had about these gloves is that when you're texting, so again, this is a very sim racer, you know, very first world problem. When you're sort of sat there in iRacing waiting for a race to start, you know, you've already qualified, got a few minutes to spare, or you're waiting in between races, you might want to pick up your phone, pick up your iPad, just sort of browse a bit. With these gloves, you could get away with it, but there's the contact you get, you know, the way touchscreens work, the electrical contact between your skin and the device, it does hamper it a bit. So you do get an unreliable sort of, doesn't always register touches, and things like swiping stuff can be a bit flaky. With these, because you've got the stitching external, there's that extra bit of material now, that sort of excess bit that sits between your phone and the your skin, or the screen in your skin. So again, these are ever so slightly worse for using a touchscreen device. But again, if you're buying a sim racing glove because of how well you can use a phone with it, you're probably not too worried about that sim racing performance anyway. But to sum it up, as I say, it's going to be a short review because there wasn't a whole lot of stuff to say that I haven't already said. Basically, these are well worth it. They're £25, and I will, if I've got that wrong, I will put a text on the screen to correct myself and put the price in the description. These are £25 for that amount of money, relative to what you pay for other brands, so like your Sparkos, like I'm trying to think of some other brands, but other brands sort of around 30-40 quid. Granted, there's cheaper gloves as well, and you can buy stuff that aren't necessarily for sim racing or driving in general, and save yourself more money still. But if you want a nice design, you want good performance, good value for money, then I think £25 is absolutely spot on. And for that, you can't go wrong, because these will last. As I say, these are 6 to 8 months old. Not put foot wrong. They have been washed and they've shown no sign of damage. They're not misshapen. I'm sure these will be exactly the same. One thing that will be interesting to see in the same amount of time, so I might cover this again in 6 to 8 months, is because of that exposure to things like wheels and you know, just general sort of touching stuff more, will the stitching fail like it hasn't done on this? It'd be interesting to see. I doubt it, given how well these perform, but it's something that may be worth revisiting in future. As you can see, in terms of the grip, so sometimes with these little rubber bits, these can come off or peel off, especially when you wash them. But you can see here, these are maybe a couple of weeks old, these are 6 to 8 months old, and there's no difference. None of this rubber's come off, despite the heavy use and despite the wash. So these really are made to last, and again, for £25, can't really go wrong. Please do consider visiting Hound if you want your racing gloves. You know, I don't get paid, despite the fact that I've only reviewed Hound products on this. It's just because, well, I did review the DDU, but other than that, in terms of apparel, it's Hound stuff. There's no reason for that, other than the fact that I think they're really good stuff, both, you know, the shoes and so far the gloves. But yeah, guys, hopefully that helps you. As I say, if you have already got these and considering these, may hold off, because it's not necessarily, it's more of a sideward step, and it's possibly not worth £25. But if you haven't already got a sim racing glove, or you've got something else and you're looking to upgrade or replace your existing one, definitely look at these. I can recommend them 10 out of 10. And yeah, I haven't got a bad word to say about them other than the phone usage, but it's possibly a irrelevant point when it comes to sim racing. Depends. But yeah guys, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time.